people out there in the sync community, welcome to our 4th annual Emmy panel, this time done virtually. So, but we're excited to see 200 some odd people out there and growing, and we're really excited. So my name is Joel C. High. I'm the president of the Guild, and I started in this role in October along with Madonna Wade Reed as the vice president, and taking over for multiple Emmy nominated Thomas Golubić, who is on the panel today. So the Guild started over 10 years ago, and we had a bunch of lofty ambitions when we first kind of got together, just a few dozen of us. One of them was that we found it, weird that music supervisors as a craft wasn't eligible for an Emmy, nor was it welcomed into the music branch of the Television Academy. So with lots of very nice lobbying and hanging out with our peers in the Television Academy, we were able to have membership, and our first trophy was given out 4 years ago, 2017, to Susan Jacobs for Big Little Lies, and we've been going ever since. So again, this is our 4th year, and we've got an amazing set of 7 of the top music supervisors in the business who have been nominated this year and who are sitting here in these little boxes on your screen, who are going to be talking about their work to get them to this lofty position. Again, as president of the Guild, I'm here to do a little bit of housekeeping for y'all. So obviously this is an all volunteer nonprofit organization. We do a lot of education. We do a lot of advocacy for music supervisors and the sync community. And a lot of our work isn't free, even though we're volunteers. So this one is, a part of our fundraising efforts to make some of our initiatives actually be able to happen. One of them is today, as a matter of fact, to all of our full freelance members, associate, corporate, and our legacy members, music supervisors, we sent out a census that we really urge you guys to take seriously. We have a deadline of Friday. We're trying to get this. We have brought in a data research firm called Untold Research, who is going to be collecting this very much anonymous information and kind of crunching the numbers for us, give us data points that are actionable, things that we can move forward to. And it's going to tell us about a lot more about who our membership is, and some things that are sensitive. So that's why we have it as anonymous. So, but again, Friday is the deadline. This is really serious, a huge effort for the Guild, and we urge you to get in there and take the survey. It should be in your inbox from Kate at Untold Research. So we are looking forward to this Friday. We're going to have another of our town hall showcases. So this is open to members, friends of the Guild across the board. Come and have a happy hour this Friday and see some music with your sync peers. And we're also going to be going into our fall educational panels. Some of them are going to be talking in things about production in the time of COVID and exploring things that people are doing to keep us safe and also get the business up and running. I'm going to be hopefully doing a panel involving talking to other guilds and unions, including AFM and SAG, about new use and reuse fees and how to work with them. In fact, trying to talk to maybe the DGA about little things like main titles. So a lot of stuff on the docket. A lot of it is because of fellow board member and executive committee member, Jonathan McHugh, also known as Q, right there in the big box in front of me. And I'm going to hand it over to him to get things started. He's going to be our moderator for this Emmy panel today. So thank you guys once again for participating. Let's see that, this is again joined by membership, including Friends of the Guild. So please join, support the Guild, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks, y'all. And congrats to everybody, by the way.
Yes, congrats to all our Emmy nominees. And we'd like to start by thanking our panel sponsors today, HBO, Netflix, Amazon, and AMC, who continue to make great TV, and of course, hire great top shelf music supervisors like today's panelists. And once again, to reiterate what Joel said, big shout out to the TV Academy for recognizing the Guild, especially our buddies Ricky Minor and Michael Levine, who really went to the wall for us to get us over the hump to first get voting rights in 16 and then get our own category in 17. And so it's obviously a big deal. People like to watch TV, especially this time, because there ain't a lot to do out there. So watching TV has become a big thing, and the TV is the way it is right now. There's so much great stuff to do. One of the reasons I love doing these panels is because it makes me watch shows that I never got to see. And that's really a big part of it, because there is so much great TV there. So we're going to go for it and start moving and introduce our panelists. Our first panelist was Nora Felder, is a three-time, as Joel said, Emmy, Grammy-nominated music supervisor. Credits include two of my favorite all-time shows, Californication and Ray Donovan, obviously Stranger Things, which she's nominated for, and the cool show Staten Island, or supposed to be Staten Island, What We Do in the Shadows. So welcome, Nora Felder. Thomas Golubić, as Joel was saying, President Emeritus of the GMS. Some of his supervision credits include Breaking Bad, a little show called Breaking Bad, Halt and Catch Fire, The Walking Dead, Netflix series Grace and Frankie, and he's doing Space Force. And obviously his work with Gary Calamar and 6 Feet Under, having one of my favorite end titles of all time with See Us Breathe, which really helped breathe a lot of life into her career. So welcome, Thomas. Thomas also was awarded the Best Music Supervision in a Drama for Breaking Bad, and twice nominated for Grammys. Let's see what else we got. We got all the way from the UK, Catherine Grieves. Help me pronounce that last name for me. Grieves?
Yes, that's right, Grieves.
Got it. Nice. UK-based award-winning music supervisor and score coordinator across television, film, based in London, as we said. She also heads up the film and TV department in Favor Music, representing a lot of the super cool boutique roster of composers. So thank you so much for staying up late and being with us tonight. And you're nominated for your show, Killing Eve, which I've kind of just discovered, even though my wife's been telling me to watch it for a long time. It's a fantastic show. Kier Lehman, Emmy and Grammy-nominated music supervisor. His work on the Academy Award-winning Spider-Man, The Spider-Verse, contributed to the soundtrack's massive success with its crazy big single, Sunflower, which went multi-platinum. The range of projects that Kier as music supervisor is vast, from the Lego movie franchise to Queen and Slim to HBO's acclaimed series, Night Of, and my son's all-time favorite show, Entourage. His time as VP music at Sony Pictures, including handled stuff like 21 and 21 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and The Karate Kid. Kier's career has included 3 Guild of Music Supervisor Awards and 6 nominations. He recently music supervised the fantastic Michelle Obama documentary, which was scored by Kamasi Washington, and is currently working on Space Jam Deuce. Jen Malone started her career in the music industry as a publicist in Boston, working with great clients like Nine Inch Nails, Portishead, Chemical Brothers, Marilyn Manson, Prodigy, and many more. Welcome, Jen. Liza Richardson, known as a music chameleon. She's supervised projects such as The Watchmen, obviously, which we'll talk about today, Friday Night Lights, one of my favorites, Narco, the new show Lovecraft County, which I hear is great, as well as been hosting a radio show on the fantastic station that we all listen to daily out here called KCRW since 1991. Robin Erding, a 2-time Emmy-winning and Grammy-nominated music supervisor. She's also both been nominated and winner of multiple Guild of Music Supervisor Awards. Some of her other projects include the Oscar-winning film Call Me By Your Name, Suspira, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, Beginners, Younger, and so many more. Currently working on the series We Are Who We Are, and the Universal film Marry Me, and the independent film No Man Land with Frances McDormand. So welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
Hello.
Good. Very good.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go around the room, ask you some questions, get you warmed up a little bit, and then we are going to show a clip from your fine work. And yes, we'll roll that way. So, because we want to make sure Catherine doesn't fall asleep in the UK.
Catherine, stay awake.
Yo. So, Catherine, fantastic show. And interesting that you, the composer in the show and your co-music supervisor, David Holmes, who has a female-fronted group called Unloved, which became a very large part of the show since its inception. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration with him and his group and how it became such a large part of the show's musical palette?
So I was brought on quite early to the show, and this was a few years ago in the first series. And kind of the vision was to have a kind of a featured artist. The show, for anybody that hasn't seen it, is kind of very female-led, to kind of, female protagonists. And we really wanted to kind of get that female voice out in the music. I was keen that we got a really great score composer involved, just, to make sure that we kind of really captured every element of the drama. It's kind of a dark humor, a dark comedy, sorry. So there's the kind of humor element, which can be really, really tricky to kind of get musically. So we needed somebody that was gonna nail that. Suggested kind of David Holmes as somebody that could be good to talk to. David's people that aren't kind of familiar with his previous work, he scored things like Ocean's 11, does a lot of Steven Soderbergh's stuff, but he's also a big record producer here. He works with really, really big artists in the UK. And so we thought he'd be a great person to talk to. And he kind of met and kind of score-wise totally kind of hit the nail on the head. And then he kind of was like, well, actually, I've got this band. We released an album kind of last year called Unloved. And we kind of thought that could be a really good fit. So we, as with all of these things, it was a kind of slow process at the beginning, trying different things out. We were still exploring different kind of featured artists. It kind of, as soon as we started getting rushes in and kind of cutting stuff to, cutting David's stuff, cutting Unloved stuff to the picture, it kind of was quite an exciting fit. So, it kind of went from there.
And also, you shoot around the world, and your female assassin is out there doing jobs all over the world, killing people. So you obviously have used a lot of international music to mirror all the countries you shoot in and all the trips she takes. Talk about the process of finding and clearing some of that international exotic music that you've been using.
We get told which countries were going to be it. I mean, this was something kind of first series where we kind of explored, she goes to France a lot and we go to Berlin. So we kind of travel around Europe, and it was kind of something that kind of really worked for the show, is that we kind of found our sound and then kind of copied that into different countries. So we kind of try and find cool music in that's sung in the language of the country that we're in as well, which can sometimes be a little bit more difficult depending on where you are. That's thrown up quite a few challenges over the years. I mean, if you go to France, there's loads of amazing French music, but some countries are more difficult. We've been to the Netherlands. Most music is sung in English there. So again, it's kind of really having to kind of dig to the bottom of our kind of record collections and contacts to kind of see what we can find. But overall on the show, we like to find music that, hasn't been used before. We like kind of B-sides that have been forgotten about for the last 40 years and stuff. We kind of use a lot of 60s, 70s music and those kind of influences. So we're kind of the challenge of finding new but old stuff is kind of part of the fun.
Sure. And you obviously, because your tones of the show changed quite a bit, you have a very female sexy relationship between the two. You got some horrific psycho killer action. And the writing is incredibly, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's writing the first season, it's incredibly well written and sardonic and done really tongue in cheek. So talk about with Holmes, how you guys stitch the fabric together of, going up and down in tone with the music to help, bridge those gaps.
So we kind of, I think, to capture all of those elements of the show, kind of the drama, the dark humor, the kind of very graphic violence, we try and kind of play against the picture a lot of the time with the music. So the unloved stuff is quite dark on the whole, and we use the unloved stuff like score a lot of the time, which I think is a big success of the show. And because David is writing original score cues and, you know, using his band's music, you know, we have that craft across each episode where, you know, he's able to really edit and use those stems and really kind of give it an overall shape. And then a lot of the time with the very, very violent scenes, that's where we play our big kind of commercial tracks that are often kind of really playing against what's just happened on the picture, which I think kind of helps with that tone. I think the whole time we're kind of pushing it kind of either way to kind of get the most out of the writing and the drama.
Cool. So we're going to show a clip that obviously you set it up for us, what's happening with it. But again, it's an unloved track featuring Raven Violet. So let's watch the clip, Levi, and then we'll come back and Catherine can talk about it. Unless you want to set it up and tell us a little bit. Yeah, tell us what's happening actually in the scene, if you wouldn't mind.
So this is in episode 3 of the 3rd series. It's been a big build up until this point. We've got Eve, who's like an MI6 agent, and Villanelle, who's a kind of serial killer. And the whole time it's this, do they love each other? Is it they have this obsession? They're obviously kind of hunting each other the whole time. And there's this kind of will they, won't they? Anyway, at this moment is kind of the closest that they get. So it was kind of a big moment in the show that I think a lot of the fans were kind of waiting for. And with that, we kind of obviously needed to make it, a big moment musically as well. So this is the first time we kind of see them together in the 3rd series.
So was that always, was Unloved always thought about that it was going in there?
So that's actually a cover of a Kinks track. So David and I kind of in between seasons always kind of texting each other different songs that we think, could potentially work, that we just generally like, that kind of work for Killing Eve. And David texted me that song sometime last year, and we thought, this is cool. And this was before we'd read scripts. David doesn't tend to read the scripts. He kind of likes to just kind of feel his way through as he gets stuff. So I kind of do read the scripts, as you have to in this job, obviously. And we were chatting, and I was like, well, I think that could work. Like lyrically, it's brilliant. Obviously, the Kinks version is Ray Davies, so male vocal. So we're like, we should get a cover of this. And I just read that script and was like, well, there's this moment that we've all been waiting for. So, let's see if that works. So, so David's band, so Unloved, kind of got it together. The vocalist on that is Raven Violet, who's usually a backing singer, but we wanted the contrast to the usual Unloved sound for that moment because it's slightly different to how we usually use Unloved. She has kind of purity to her voice, which I think works really well. And so we got that together and tried it, and it kind of all came together, I think. We sent the song to Ray Davies. He loved the cover and stuff. So it was kind of a kind of eureka moment, I guess, on that episode. So.
It's great. It's a great show. It's up for 8 nominations this year, including yours. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and we'll keep moving on and come back to you. Mr. Kier Lehman, how are you, sir?
Hello.
I was in KCRW yesterday. I heard Prentice Penny, showrunner, interview with him, and
cool.
Talking about his upbringing and, just a fantastic, funny guy with a great story, great pedigree of shows he's worked on. So talk about the process of working with him and pitching music back and forth with him and Issa Rae, and how you guys all work together.
Sure. Prentice is like the showrunner and kind of heads the writer's room and executive produces the show. And he is involved in the music, and he's kind of in our music review meetings. But it's really Issa that drives all the music choices, and her and I kind of working, closely together, sending stuff back and forth, and working with the editors, obviously, to cut things in, and then we, kind of sit together in our music review meetings, and watch songs cut in together, talk about them, decide what we like. But it's, it's definitely very collaborative kind of between her and I, as, helping to kind of tell the story through the songs. And so, we really lean heavily on the songs to fill in the story, where there's either, gaps in kind of what they've written, or scenes where it's intended to kind of, show our characters going through something, and using a song to play over that, kind of highlighting their inner dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Issa Rae's character, it's called Insecure for a reason. There's always like the relationships, and why is this friend not being good to this friend? There's, and how things are perceived. It's really interesting, the insecurity of it all. But it's interesting back and forth between like a very funny comedic tone to a very, really well done piece about relationships. And so how do you guys try to score, both the fun, we're going to see a fun clip in a minute, but how do you guys try to score the emotional stuff also? And you're using a lot of great LA local stuff. And like I said, I love watching the show with Shazam with my daughter, because I'm always picking up stuff. Like, how is the process of finding it? And Issa, obviously, and you can talk about her music label that she's doing, because I think that's really interesting for an actor / comedian to be doing what she's doing.
Right.
Really cool. So you could talk about both, would be great.
Yeah. The first question was about.
It's basically just the emotional nature of the friend.
Oh, right. So this season, got it. So this season was definitely more emotional. There's a more range than we've had in the past. It's obviously still super funny, but her character goes through a tough kind of spell with her best friend Molly, and they are kind of falling out, and she's kind of discovering herself and learning and growing, and has some big successes. The clip that we're going to show is about she puts on a music festival in her neighborhood that goes off really well, is a big success. But she struggles with her friends, and so we leaned into that a little bit more with the music this year. And I definitely have obviously had scripts and stuff leading up to it, so I knew that those moments were coming up in the story, and so I focused on making sure we had music that was going to represent those for her to consider. And she had some things in mind that she was had on deck to use in that spot, and then I had to help fill in a lot of those spots and some of those key moments with the right song that was going to really tell the story lyrically, and of course touch emotionally, musically touch on that emotion too. So it was a little bit more of a range this year, which was fun to play with. It kind of the evolution of the show, bringing a little bit more of that emotion to it. And then Issa, in between the previous season and this last season, had signed a record deal. So she has a record label through Atlantic. And we put our soundtrack out through her label this year for the first time, which was really cool. And she has some great people on her team that, helped as far as like A&R and making sure that our, release was prioritized and all of that at the label. So we had some really great attention this year. And it was really cool to see that, come to fruition, and the kind of profile that I think it raised our profile a little bit, and was so it's cool. I think I maybe see that as a trend. I mean, I think I'm hearing about some other showrunners and executive producers having label deals and publishing deals and stuff like that, and putting together catalogs. And I mean, I think it only makes sense, especially for somebody like her with the kind of musical influence that she has and that our show has.
Well, I think that, for me, who started out in the soundtrack business, the soundtrack business got eaten by the internet, because people are like, well, I don't need to buy a record if I could just get the best track or two off the internet. So it is nice to see someone like her who has that real music depth of experience and passion for it to, go in business with a company like Atlantic and, really try to build that bridge to get the soundtrack business back out there and up, because soundtracks are always an amazing compilation of stuff. So again, you talked about a big part of the storyline is this block party that she's putting together in Inglewood for her hometown to try to just, get good word about all the vendors and the merchants out there. And then she books Schoolboy Q and he cancels on her. So last she gets Vince Staples. So just set up this clip about what's happening at the block party.
Yeah, so I had a hard time choosing a clip for representing the show, and I think, like I said, a lot of what we do is we tell story through songs and develop character through songs, and but in this episode, it's a much bigger scope, kind of musically, than we've done in the past, because she has a block party music festival, and so we had not only just the kind of usual story moments with songs, but we have a music festival in the show. So we have live performances from about 7 artists, ranging from, very small independent artists to, bigger names like Vince Staples and Sir. And then, there's a big crowd kind of participation moment in it. And so, I felt like it was worth showing some of those moments that are kind of, showing like the bigger scope of what we put on in this episode, and where we kind of took things musically this season.
I do have a question for you about that. So when clearing, you obviously have to clear the publishing, right? That's a given. But then when you clear a live version, did you use a live master, or did you use your own version on set, and when you wouldn't have to clear that master?
We use the original master.
Okay.
We clear the original master and then had that on set, playback. Okay. Earwigs, all that fun stuff.
And how do talk about the live, doing a live recording, not a live recording, but when you do those, talk about the different things that you need to do as a music supervisor when you do an on-set.
Yeah, well, we did do some live recording too. So some of the artists, like Vince Staples, his voice we recorded live on set. So of course, there's obviously a lot of pre-production that goes into it, and choosing the songs, choosing the artists. That was all me and Issa kind of deciding on, like, what are the right artists for this scene, for this festival, that are going to highlight the neighborhood, that are, from there. So then, choosing the songs, making sure the songs are cleared before we show up on the day, and then making sure we have all the right tracks to play back on set, and the right instruments, the right band, who's going to be in the band, which bands have a bunch of live players versus a DJ. There's a lot of kind of those, that kind of preparation ahead of it, and then making sure that everybody shows up and looks like they're playing their part. Like I said, some of it was live recording, so we tried to record the vocals from all the artists, so that at least that was gonna, help give it the live as much feeling of being live. And then playback, of the track along with them. So a lot of it was done, with some tracks, which is like a metronome that's a very low frequency, so that you can mix it out later. And so we could make sure that we got as much live sound from the crowd as possible, to just kind of get it feeling as real and authentic as possible. So that you feel like it's there, you feel like you're there in the crowd watching it, and not like it's made for a television show.
Cool. Well, look, you got 8 nominations. You got one of them, so congrats on that, and good luck. And let's keep moving around. Miss Nora Felder, Stranger Things, also 8 nominations this year, 6 wins in the past. Fantastic show. Everybody sucked in. It's probably the show that people for some reason seem to binge the fastest. I don't know. Maybe it's the the promo that Netflix does to get it out there. When it comes out, it's just gone. It's like, oh my God, that's it? I got to wait another year or whatever it is. So speaking of waiting another year, I was just watching the trailer for season 4, and it looks like Hopper's coming back from a prison camp in somewhere in Siberia. Talk about the what you know about when production's coming back on the show.
That's changed a couple times. We were a month into shooting before we got shut down, and then it's just kind of changed. It's still a little bit of the unknown. The last first I was told August. The last I heard, which I think is also out in the press, is that September, hopefully. But, it's still, they're still working things out.
Sure.
So I'm not really sure. So hopefully soon.
Much like the rest of us. Anyway, so you also, I had licensed a song years ago from the group Survive, and Kyle and Mike became the composers of your show, who basically they were recording artists and then morphed themselves into big-time composers on your show. Talk about the process of you working as a music supervisor with composers that also are recording artists, and how you guys might collaborate in picking spots and thinking about, who does what spot and that process.
Well, I think the story's out there. The Duffer Brothers found Michael and Kyle. I think they discovered them on YouTube. And they were really engrossed with their music. They just thought they were great. And they knew from the start that was, the style they wanted for the show. And so for the temp, for our season 1, we were experimenting a lot, or I should say the editors mainly were experimenting with a lot of their pre-existing tracks. And so then when we entered into post, we had spotting sessions, and the Duffers would pretty much zone in. They had already kind of figured out, from the cuts, from experimenting with things, what was needed. So the Duffers just kind of zoned in on tones, and and we would sit and figure out, which spots we thought we'd go source, which spots that we thought we'd go score, and sometimes we would actually experiment with both and see what happened. But the great thing about it, I think, for them, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, is they were able to do their style. It wasn't, a lot of composers have a certain style, but they have to kind of hone it into another vision. This was them. This was their core. So it was pretty much doing what they were already doing, so they fell into it so well.
Yeah, the movie that I licensed for, it was all that kind of Sisters of Mercy, Love and Rockets. It was perfectly. So you're right. It's a great choice that they found. I didn't know they found them on the internet. It's a great choice.
Yeah, they just they deep dived and found them, which I love. And they're the nicest guys in the whole world. And it's a Hollywood story. I mean, they just they don't know what hit them.
Yeah, reading that he barely quit his job just before he had told his boss that, hey, I'm doing the show, I gotta go.
They're really nice guys. I'm sure some of you out there have met them. And they're just really kind of friendly, and I don't know, they're just real chill and really nice guys. And I felt a little maternal with them, and I'm always there when they need help, when they need to talk something through. But they're lovely, and I'm just real happy for them because they are good people to the core, and we always love it when great people to the core, rise.
Sure.
So
all those CDs behind you must really come in handy, because your show is kind of, being a period show, it's quite a large jukebox you have to pull from to be able to pick and work with, the Duffers on finding the right period cues for the film. Is there some way that they like to go about it, or is it just right song, right scene, and then go dig the jukebox up?
Well, usually what we do is kind of, I guess, a standard process is the footage comes in, and then, I work with the editors, and we just kind of play in the sandbox with songs. There are times when the Duffers also come up with songs, and, it's a collaboration, as we all know. People will throw ideas into the pot. We'll try them. What I really love about this process, and I don't even know, I'm never answering the question the interviewer asked, so that's just me. But the thing I love on this show is that what resonates with me, lived in New York City in the 80s and running around to CBGBs and all these clubs during this thriving 80s music scene. Well, so I have a direct relation and a memory with a lot of this music. But the Duffers and some of the younger people on the show don't have that contact. So it's real interesting. And I'm always, when we're up there together, I'm always trying to get a read. Like sometimes I'll just sit there and play songs. And I want to get a read like from the interns. How do you react to this? Or to the, to a 30-year-old, to a 20-year-old, to a 40-year-old. Everyone has different reactions. And it's funny because some songs that maybe we thought were kind of hokey, in the 80s when it came out, like Aha, they think is super cool, So what I try and do when I'm collaborating and coming up with, I'm coming up with ideas, but I'm also like to play my ideas and see how they're reacting to it. Because this show, what's amazing about this show is it's got a cross demographic. You have teens all the way to 70-year-olds. So the music has a way of bringing the whole family and everyone together. So the music has to do that as well. So I really try and make that part of my process, even when I'm looking for things. And, we just, that's how we do it. It's like whatever falls from the sky.
What's great about all these shows that you guys all did, that, it's not the most common path. It's a lot of left field choices, and it's, really interesting and different. And the clip we're about to show is also that way. It's not a standard piece of music you might hear at the period or during this period. So talk about the clip we're going to show and the music, the Al-Hazan piece.
All right. Well, this is the scene. I don't know how many of you were watching the past GMS Zoom FYC session that we did, but in that one, we showed the end song from that episode, which was Don McLean's American Pie, which I had found for the scene. And it plays during a pretty brutal scene where Billy is at Heather's house having dinner with her parents, and they proceed, because they're possessed, Billy and Heather proceed to bludgeon their parents, basically, while American Pie is playing overhead. So originally, when I pitched the song, I had it playing over this scene, and then it cuts away from this scene, the one you guys are about to see, and then it continues over the scene. We were making it like they were connected, and it continued over the ending scene and into the end titles. So that I pitched it to the director, and the editor, they fell in love with it. We kept it in. The Duffers loved it. It stayed in. So when the Duffers came in, they were like, we love it. It's perfect, but let's keep it in the ending. But Nora, find us something in this scene, which you're about to see, which Max and 11 in this episode are very suspicious. Max and 11 is heavily bonded this season. And they're really suspicious that that something's going on with Billy. So they're kind of investigating and spying. So this scene is the opening on the rainy night when Heather and Billy are having dinner at the parents'. So what the Duffers told me was, they're like, let's make the American Pie and all that, like, that's the horror part of it. But for this part of it, try and find us something that would be playing at the parents' that kind of has an ominous to it, but not in an obvious way. But, maybe, hints that not all is what it seems, and which way is this going to go? So this song, which is a 60s indie song, and also I had to find something indie because we have a lot of music in this episode, big copyrights. We've got Madonna, we've got Tina Marie, we've got Wham, we've got Howard Jones. So as most of you know, when you spend a lot of money, you got to double down on some cues and and really bring it down, pull it down. So I had this song by Al Hazan, this 60s crooner song. It's called Is It a Sin? And I like the way that it was kind of, and you'll see it, it's bittersweet and ominous. And I like the way it's the lyrics are, is it a sin to love you? And, you know, to me, I was like, when I get goosebumpy of the idea, I tried to picture work perfectly. I thought, this is perfect because look what's happening. Heather is bludgeoning her parents. You know what I'm saying? So but this is kind of a bittersweet love song. Somebody's, you know, so, you know, I kind of like the correlation of it.
Well, Nora, continue great work. And it's a great show. I love that show. Can't wait for the next season. Next, moving around the room, Thomas Golubić. Are you still there, Thomas? Are you with us?
I'm here. Hello.
Thomas, you have one of my favorite quotes. Music supervisor, hugely important to narrative storyteller, to telling. It's been a profession that's often been overlooked for a long time, and then to resonate on my idea, my comments earlier about how important it was for the TV Academy to recognize music supervision. So you've been a great for us in along with Houlihan and Tracy McKnight and Joel and Maureen, a number of other people, making sure that we got the recognition we needed. And this, year has been it's a bumper crop for amazing shows. And obviously Better Call Saul, between that and Breaking Bad, I think it's over 100 episodes that you guys have done, your team with Gilligan. So talk about that, how important that collaboration is to have a showrunner like Vince and Peter. And also you and David Porter have been together all this time, the composer. So, that collaboration of having a team like that and being able to come off a great show, a huge show like Breaking Bad, and go into a prequel like this, just talk about, first of all, you're lucky as hell to be in there, but talk about, I know you appreciate that, but just talk about the process.
Yeah, it's a great luxury, I think, to have long-form storytelling. I think one of the things that's very different for composers and supervisors about tackling films is with a film, where you're editing up, where the story will conclude. And with television, you don't. So in many ways, you're building a story brick by brick, but you're trying to strategize of where the story may head, where the characters may head. And so I think that one of the great luxuries we've had is, since we've been working together since 2007, in one form or another, we've been able to build not just relationships of trust, but also this really kind of exploratory process, which is very collaborative. And I think we all work on really collaborative projects. And I think because we all trust each other a lot, we do a lot of designing and redesigning and whittling ideas down. So in the case for Better Call Saul, and this particular episode, Better Call Saul is really the story about a character named Jimmy McGill becoming Saul Goodman, who we meet in Breaking Bad. And so I think that in many ways, the key moments of his transformation have been frequently music moments. They've been opportunities for us to use music, whether it's Dave's score or whether it's songs, to kind of capture and to help the audience recognize that this is a transformative moment. This is a moment that this character is shifting. And so I think that what's great about working together for so long is that we get a chance to throw ideas in really early. So I meet with the writers before they've even broken the episodes out yet. So we get an early idea of what we think the new season will be, where the characters might go. We then, I go back to my team, we collaborate, we build new playlists, we then send those off to the writers, and then the writers begin to draw from those ideas, and sometimes they'll write stuff in the script, sometimes they'll just use it as background. It helps us figure out what the fabric will be of the new storytelling. Then when it comes to the directors coming in, we now have another layer of ideas. So we start sending stuff off to production. Some of the actors like to get mixes as well. So we'll send different music ideas where we think their characters might go. And it's all very open, and everybody just kind of keeps it as an open discussion. And then likewise, when we get into editorial, we have another layer of that. And we spot the episodes, both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, with no temp music. There's no score, no songs. It's all clean. So the conversations we have are incredibly detailed and very thoughtful. And because everyone's in the room, which again, sadly will not be the case for the time being, we really get a chance to kind of bounce ideas off of each other and come up with ideas, sometimes impromptu, that are really exciting, and then we have to somehow deliver on, usually within a week. So you have the benefit of a long relationship, which has got a lot of trust to it. You have the ability to influence at every layer of production another set of ideas. And we frequently have sequences which there was 5 or 6 different song ideas or music ideas that we were working through all the way through. And then in the last moment, once we've music spotted it, we have one more shot to kind of give it another idea. And I think because we love being surprised, that's a really fun part, because we've already gotten the ideas of what the beats of the stories are. And it's really important that we're always true to character and we're always true to this development. And we are very lucky because we have a very wide palette of musical ideas. Music can be from anywhere in the world. We're not tied to geography. We're not tied to time period or genre. So in many ways, that freedom allows us to just hammer down to character and story and tone. And I think that ends up becoming that moment of, can we surprise ourselves again and put something in the last minute, even though we've all gotten used to another cut. And that's sort of the joy of it.
Yeah, it's got to be a blessing for Porter, not to have temp love on score.
Oh.
He can just create his own thing and don't have to, I like this because of this, and he's got to mimic that. That's a real blessing, I would think, for you guys not to have temp.
Hugely. And it's also great for the editors, because the editors have to make the episodes work on their own. I think that one of the things, and we all work on different projects, a lot of times editors will use music as a crutch, whether it's score or whether it's a song, and they'll maybe cheat story and then let the music kind of spackle it together. We don't have a net on either Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, so it has to work on its own. And then the question really is, how does music contribute? We also tend to be pretty spare. So I think one of the things that's nice is that we don't put music in unless we really feel like it's contributing. And Dave in particular is really vehement about making sure that he knows what he's communicating. And this isn't a situation where we're like, well, it just needs some more action. What angle of the action? What's the tonal quality? And because we're all part of that conversation, I think we all learn. We also do sound design in that same session. So our music spotting, you guys are going to love this. We usually start at 9 a.m. and we wrap up about 2 p.m. for a 1-hour episode. It's incredibly long and incredibly detailed.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we have such a clear idea of what we're trying to do that we're all able to be held accountable to those ideas. So if I have a crazy idea from like somewhere behind me, I know that they're going to hold me accountable to the concepts behind it because we talked about it in detail. And that way, if it's a crazy idea, it kind of has to hit all those bells and say, yes, it tells story, it's surprising, it takes us deeper in this direction, and then we can say it's worth swapping out.
You talked about the transition between Jimmy's character and Saul becoming Saul, and I noticed it kind of got funkier. Like, Porter's score got funkier and stuff. Like one track that hit me was the McHugh rhythm and steel band. Yep. During the action when he goes in the thrift store, is buying the bowling balls. Talk about that process of moving a character moves into another character in a prequel. You could kind of do that, but talk about having the music change along with that transition, which is kind of interesting.
We went from it's funny because the hard part for Better Call Saul was that we were greenlit to go to series without a pilot. That meant that we didn't get a chance to build a nomenclature for music for the first episode. It was like a moving train. And if you look closely at that first season, a lot of it was us trying to figure it out as we went. Dave's score changed. I think the songs changed. But one thing which I think was really helpful was we realized that for Jimmy, music, even if it's in a montage, is aspirational. It's the idea of who he thinks he could be and not who he actually is. And I think by going with like Dave Brubeck and stuff that was kind of sophisticated jazz, it was leaning towards his vanity and towards his idea that he is like a guy who's going to be a winner and he's going to be the cool cat. But the truth is he's not. He's a hustler. He's scrappy. And so we tried to then calibrate between going from this more sophisticated jazz, which was his aspirational idea of who he was, to really falling in love with the experiences he was having as himself. And it was funkier and grittier. And we kind of allowed him to have a bit more joy in those experiences. So I think the fun part really is, and it was something that we kind of evolved with time. That's, again, the great gift of television is that you have time to figure that out. You got all this real estate and you're slowly calibrating as you go. So we know we can't jump too far because we don't want to land where he's going to end up being. But we know that each moment gets a little bit more like he's into his own sense, and it's where his comfort level is, which is a fun part.
And that comes back to your, quote that I love, that musical storytelling, that you guys are really, because you're so in the trenches with Gilligan and his team, and you meet with the writers, which a lot of supervisors do not get to. You're very tight with the composer. You guys have all been together. You really can map this out on a more intellectual level than a lot of other shows. And, it's really kind of an amazing to see it and watch it, watch the character transform, and the music goes with them,
It's very labor intensive. Like, I work harder and longer on Better Call Saul than on any other project. And anybody who knows the economics of music supervision, it means that you're losing money on a project that you love. But I think
that's some spotting sessions.
What's that?
Up that trophy for the mantelpiece, pal. That's why you're here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's all about
from the spotting sessions.
Oh my God, it's insane. But like, in a weird way, you kind of forget about all that and you end up really enjoying the challenges. And we will do 6 or 7 passes on Muzak. Like, we had a store. It was basically a CC mobile store, and we had Jimmy working in a mobile store. And we ended up doing pass after pass of library music so we could do time jumps in a way that was really compelling. And the fun part when we go back to that sequence is it's musically really interesting because we landed on neat ideas, even though I don't think we intellectually knew what we were doing. We just knew it felt emotionally right. And when we started cutting up those sequences and really making it into a choppy time jump, that collage of library music suddenly told the story of its own. But we had to kind of go through many hours of failure to get to the point that it was beginning to work. And I think that's the part which is tricky. And with TV, you don't always have the luxury of time. It's frequently like between Tuesday night and mixing on Monday afternoon, you're like, all right, how do we pull this off and clear it all and get it done in time?
So let's go to this clip, which is, why don't you set up this clip, which is just, it's a piece of art, really. It's not really, it's TV, but it's, it's a whole different level to it. So just tell us what's happening here and why.
Yeah, sure. So Jimmy McGill is about to go into the cartel underworld. He's being beckoned to have a meeting with Lalo Salamanca, who's a brutal killer and a very charming one. And we're really watching Jimmy make a choice to go deep into the world. The writer, Anne, wrote a beautiful sort of metaphor where there's an ice cream cone, which is the color green, the color of money, the color of joy. He's eating the ice cream cone, talking to people. He's having a great time. And then basically Nacho, who's one of the sort of cartel guys, pulls up and makes him get in the car, and he forces him to drop his ice cream cone. The ice cream cone hits the ground, and the next episode we open up, and what's happened is the transformation of the ice cream cone. So Jimmy's idea of money and wealth and security and status has now become something different. One of the great joys is that, and I think we all love this, when you get a chance to dig deep into your collections, into stuff that you found charming and wonderful at some point, but never thought there'd ever be a home for. This is kind of one of those, I think like we were trying different ideas for this, like the ants of the red are the underworld. We use the color red for the underworld and for basically the criminal cartels. So we have the red ants taking over the green, the dreams that he's having. So we have all these little metaphors. And then we thought, in a way, sometimes the best idea is the simplest. So we had some like jagged jazz, and we thought we could maybe just do sound effects alone for the ants. And then when we found this simple idea of like, these are basically ants climbing a mountain. Jimmy is another mountaineer trying to make it to the top of the hill of success. And that dream is sort of what carries him forward. So it was in a way a very simple idea, but it just kind of resonated. And, it was like one of those ideas that we didn't have in the cut originally. We figured it out a few days before we mixed, and it just felt right.
Awesome. Well, great work, Thomas. Let's keep moving. Liza Richardson, how are you, Sunshine?
Good. How are you?
So your show, The Watchmen, leads with 26 Emmy nominations. What do you think? Why do you think this show has hit such a nerve with Emmy voters this year?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just a super high quality show. I think, Damon Lindelof at his peak. I mean, he was really popular when he did Lost, and then I didn't work on Lost. I worked on Leftovers with him, which I thought was incredible too. I think the way he mixes humor and drama and but also, you know, the story obviously is very timely. You know, it's got a lot of meaning right now. I mean, even the mask thing kind of freaked me out because this came out last fall, and now we're all wearing masks. Different kind of mask. But
yeah, I mean, look, it's got Tulsa, it's got crazy white supremacists, it's got shifty politicians, shall we say. You know, it's got powerful people behind the scenes. There are a lot of weird similarities with what's happening today. And I guess in a way, when you break it down, like a lot of people have come to it based on saying, hey, have you seen Watchmen? There's a lot of, you know, stuff going on that you should watch. And even though the comic book series was created, the DC comic book series in 1986, you know, and now is when it finally hits the screen. It's kind of, you're right, interesting time-wise. And I think maybe that zeitgeist is just timeliness, you know, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, originally it wasn't about white supremacy and racism. It was a different storyline. I think, you know, more related to the Cold War. And so this was the avenue that Damon wanted to go down, and you know, obviously, it's perfect for the times.
Yeah, it's resonated well. So, talk about your process with Damon. Like, how does he like to work, and how do you work with him? And you know, coming up with ideas. What's the process like?
Well, I think he's really good at understanding how one thinks about music, and he puts together these what I like to call, like, he gives me really great pop quizzes. He gives me these limitations or parameters. For example, one day he called me up and said, "Can you go on a search for songs from the 80s that have really long intros?" Forgive me if I've already told this story to you guys, but I don't know. I found it to be, at first I was like, oh my God, how am I going to find like 80s songs with really long intros? And he meant like 1.5 minutes to 2 minute long intros. But then when I started looking, there's tons, there's so much. So, but I don't, anyway, he's, okay, what was I going to say about him? He's really good at that. And you know, he understands the job of the music supervisor. He nailed it recently when he said that a good music supervisor is like a librarian, where they will help you find the book that you're looking for and the book that you don't know you're looking for. And I think that really sort of describes what we do, you know, because we're here to serve the filmmaker and to help tell the story. And then sometimes, yes, we get to bring in our own ideas and show you, you know. So I think that's cool. I just think he's really smart, really funny, really kind, and he understands music supervision.
That's good. So interestingly, directionally, tonally, you know, a lot of interesting ballads from New Orleans Queen of Soul, Irma Thomas, to Doris Day, and the male side, Ink Spots, to Brooke Benton. Sets a really kind of dark throwback mode. Why was that choice? You know, why is that utilized in there?
I mean, we use Careless Whisper. We use, you know, all kinds of modern music too. We use reggae, which I'm going to show. My clip has reggae in it, which I'm excited about that. Well, kind of like what Thomas was just talking about with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It's like we're not really limited to era or a style of music. And I think that Damon appreciates just trying to be mind-blowing and stuff. I remember we used a solo harp piece in Leftovers. You know, and there are a lot of soul ballad. Damon loves Otis Redding. Like that's kind of his touchstone. So I make him soul compilations and stuff that's kind of related to Otis Redding and that kind of thing. But I mean, that's kind of his comfort zone. But you know, I mean, there are a lot of episodes that do have a timestamp to them, and you want to use a song to help.
Yeah, I love the Careless Whisper use. That was fantastic.
That was fun.
So also talk about Atticus and Trent, right? You have these amazing Academy Award winning composers, Trent coming out, and both of them coming out of Nine Inch Nails. That process, and also Life on Mars, which I thought was great. They covered Life on Mars for the show. Just talk about working with them and that why that piece of music.
So, I think the big story with them is that in episode 106, there was a song that it was a Doris Day song, but we got a denial. The scene itself is a lynching, and the scene description is super, super scary. So we weren't able to clear that song, and we weren't able to clear really the publisher said that we can't use anything in that scene from their catalog.
Wow, I've never even heard that. An overall shutdown.
Yeah, we got shut down big time on a lynching scene.
Publishing shutdown.
Yeah.
That's a first.
Yes. So Damon had this wonderful idea about, I'm going to reach out to Trent and Atticus, see if they'd be up for doing something completely outside of their wheelhouse. They did do the Life on Mars cover. That's not what I'm talking about. But they did this Doris Day style jazz big band, kind of a Frank Sinatra, where you have that really long intro and then this beautiful singing. And they just nailed it. I mean, it's just cool. They're really smart, amazing guys. They think things through very carefully.
So in the show, you have this whole Jeremy Irons character, which is just crazy weird and just left field of shit. And every time he comes on the screen, there's obviously some really interesting music playing. Not every time he comes on the screen, but when there's music playing, there's some weirdness to him, and the music is a classic. So why don't you set up this clip we're about to show where his character is on screen?
Yeah, I mean, his character's name Adrian Veidt, and he's English. So we decided that he was into reggae. That's just like part of his thing. So we use the Israelites, and then there was another song that we were going to use, "Take It Easy" by Hopeton Lewis. Now there was a dispute on that. Suddenly, the publishing rights were. I mean, it was recently used in an ad, so we were very confused. Like, why is there suddenly a dispute? But there was. We couldn't get past it, so we had to replace it. And so, I don't know. This is just a song that I love. It's by Leroy Sibbles, who was one of the lead vocalists of the Heptones. So it's a 60s, 70s classic. It just fit with his character. We tried a lot of different things. Plus, I think it's a great song. There's a cool guitar solo in it.
All right. Well, thank you, Nora. Nora. Thank you, Liza. Let's keep going. Jen Malone, you still there?
I'm here.
Venice, California. How you doing? You're on the air.
Long time, first time.
Yeah. Again, another great Shazam kind of show. My kids sucked me in, and I was hooked into it, much like Kier's show. So 6 nominations, great buzz. Amazing having Zendaya as a lead character. Triple threat. She can act, she could dance, she could sing. Talk about the process of how you got involved with that show.
I got involved because a producer who I work with on Atlanta and actually worked on with Baskets. She's a friend of mine from Boston, and it started with Baskets. We met up, and our Boston crew in LA is alive and well. And she's like, "Hey, can you just clear this one song for me?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." This was for Baskets. And then it was like, "Can you clear? And is this public domain? Okay, can you just be our music supervisor?" So that's how I got Baskets season 1. And then she brought me on to Atlanta, and then she brought me on to Euphoria. So Caitlin Waldron, I owe my career to.
Helped out.
Yeah. So yes.
So your obviously your composer is also another guy that's got some chops. He's nominated for Best Composer, Labyrinth. and the song that he did with Zendaya that he wrote, All of Us. So it's a very musical crew you got there. And what is the direction that you guys are looking for? Is it just the most contemporary, coolest shit out there? Or and there's so much music coming at you. Talk about how to juggle it all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of music in the show, but we use, much like Thomas and Liza, that it doesn't matter what time period, it doesn't matter what genre or where. And so that can be really daunting sometimes, as far as like, okay, where do I even start? Shout out Camino. So it was just, but obviously when the kids are listening to music and they're in the car, obviously we're true to that. But then there's so many other moments in the show that we just really opened up and were able to kind of weave a lot of diegetic into non-diegetic and just kind of put together pieces of a puzzle. Every episode was literally a puzzle, and trying to just fit everything in so that it didn't, your ears didn't get tired, because there was a lot of music, both from Source and from Labyrinth.
Yeah, so Labyrinth, I think one episode, I think you had like 15 or so cues, and then sometimes you go to a manageable 7 or 8, 10. You have a lot of cues. So with Labyrinth doing his part, are there things that he'll take as source and score, or is it because he does do both? How do you guys work together in that sense?
Well, we didn't work together a lot. He was in the UK, and we just had our own jobs in that, like, you think of an artist puts out a record of 45 minutes, an hour at most of an artist and a regular release. Well, Labyrinth had to do, the Carnival episode was like 35 minutes worth of music for one episode. And then he had to kind of do that 8 times. So we didn't have real spotting sessions. I mean, it was just me like setting up camp in editorial, and just working with them. We also had Sam shooting the season as well and doing rewrites, because he's the director and the writer. So there was a lot of moving parts. And so I think that kind of contributed to making it a puzzle and having it all fit in.
Well, you did a really good job, and the show is amazing, both visually and musically. And the pieces you use, like I said, they're just you have like a lead singer of BTS doing a track at the end of the last episode, right? Talk about how that one came.
That was a joke. Sam wanted to unite the fandom. BTS, huge K-pop band. They had a song called Euphoria. So it was just kind of, it was really funny that we found such a great spot for it too, with Kat and
it was like a dance scene, right?
Yeah.
Well, so
that was very much a funny moment. Internal
you guys are having fun, which is great.
Yeah,
because it is a pretty serious show. Like my first episode, my daughter would not let me watch her. She's like, "Dad, you can't watch this." I was like, "What are you talking?" She's like, "No, you got to get out." Oh shit. Okay, I'll have to sneak back in when you're not around and watch it. So let's talk about this clip and this piece of music. How did this piece of music get here, and set it up for us?
So it's a very, 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 very intense scene. Cassie goes in for an abortion, and she kind of disconnects and disassociates what's happening in the present moment, and goes into this fantasy dream world of her being an ice skater, which is what she did when she was growing up. And it was scripted as something else, and we just, again, kind of opening up that, where do we even start looking for something like this? Tried a lot of different songs. And then it came from a text from Sam, probably at 3 a.m. My body is a cage, Cassie abortion. So we put it in, and, lyrically it works. Everything about it is such a beautiful song. It was a very tricky clearance rather than just kind of sending off a quote request where the scene description says Cassie gets an abortion. I called Sony ATV and Sony on both sides and, let them know kind of this is what's happening. And I know that Arcade Fire are very sensitive about licensing as well. So it just had to be handled with care. And, the people that I work with at both label and publisher are amazing. And they were like, okay, send the request and let's just take this slowly. They wanted to see the scene, but as a lot of us supervisors here know, we had to deal with PICs, which is a format of how to view it in the same way that, it's just very confidential, highly classified material.
You gotta have the right code to get into PICs a couple different ways.
Yep. And, artists are it's just very difficult to get them to actually do it. It was, it's not like we could just throw it up on a quick time. Sure. So we posted on the Sony lot where Sony ATV was. So Amy, who's amazing over there, she came over and saw it and was like, okay. We were able to have the manager see it. And then we got the approval in, which we were very excited about because it was another one of like, okay, what's our backup? Yeah, there is no backup, which was kind of the story of my life on this show. And it's a beautiful scene. I mean, it's hard to watch. I apologize if it's
super intense. Absolutely.
Yeah. There was a whole other second storyline that happens towards the middle to the end of the use, but the main scene was Cassie. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And from the Valley, Miss Robin Erden, are you still there? Robin, you there?
You're muted, lady.
So I think I'm here.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, John.
Reminder, questions. If people have questions, put them in the chat because after Robin, we're going right to questions, and then we're all going home. Or for many of, we are home. But anyway, Robin, we saved the best for last. You already won 2 Emmys, which is kind of crazy because I remember talking to you, 4 or 5 years ago, and it's just really nice to see that you got in this groove and just been crushing it on the show. Another 20 nominations for this show. The show's already won 16 Emmys, 8 2 years in a row. I'm surprised you don't have a big mantelpiece and showing off the Emmys behind for us, but I know that's you're not that kind of gal. So how did you end up working on this show and meeting the Palladinos, and talk about the process and how you got here?
I was just music supervising on my own. And I got a call from, I think it was Disney, that said, we're working on the show. Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino are working on it. They don't really want to work with a music supervisor. They are music supervisors, but would you come on board? Would you meet them? And they don't want anybody, and they'll never, we don't know if we can even get anybody hired, but can you, go meet with them? So I said, sure. And anybody that knows me knows I'm horrible in meetings. Even this, I'm like a nervous wreck. I can't talk in front of people. So I go in, and they've got this beautiful office. It's all pink, Maisel pink, but it's all pink. And we're talking about music, and it was a show called Bunheads that Sutton Foster was in. So I started working on Bunheads, and that show ended. And then they called me. They had already done Gilmore Girls. Then they called me for Gilmore Girl Revival, which I did. And then I was driving down the street one day, and I got a phone call from Amy going, hey, lady, will you do this show? We're going to have this little show that's going to start up, and I don't know what it's going to be, but it's about this, and we need some music, and can you supervise this for us? Would you come on? I was like, sure. Well, this is the little show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So that's how I started. So
little show grew up big.
Little show. We all laugh about it because she did that with our choreographer, Marguerite Derrick, who she's worked with also. They're incredibly loyal, and it's a dream. It's a dream. And
think about it, the majority of shows that go on the air, the pilots that get made, and how many get to have these 7 shows that are on here, right? How many get to this place that they get huge Emmy Crush nominations and people are talking about them, and when it all works, it just works well. So you got to realize the magic and the genius of it when it happens. and just, and like, you and Thomas getting on long-term shows that are just fantastic and keep getting better and better. It's a blessing, but you obviously work hard at it. And so talk about this season a little bit. We talked about this before, but it is a bit of a different tact in the sense that you got, you had songs written, you had performers, you kind of opened it up along. She's obviously your main character comedian, but you're obviously mixing it up with all sorts of different musicians and comedians. Talk about that process of doing that and how rewarding that was for you this year.
It was pretty amazing. We always have a certain style of music, and we use music as source, and we do not have a composer. So every time Midge is walking around and dancing, she knows what song she's dancing to. She's walking. All of the actors, all of the extras, all of everybody. It's like a musical. They are all dancers. And we have a lot of oneers, which means that there's a camera and it's doing one shot. So with this particular season, we opened with the USO, and we had Tom Meisner and Curtis Moore write this freaking a great song, One Less Angel. And every time it's played, I at least sing it in my sleep the rest of the night, and I call them up and I go, I hate you. But we had them start writing for Shy, because Shy came into the picture because all of a sudden Midge is on this huge tour with this very famous singer who's supposed to be somewhere between Sam Cooke and Johnny Mathis. So they had to create music that already fit into the sound of the show. It had to feel like it was really of the era, because unlike a lot of other shows we've just heard today, we have a specific era. And we're now in 1960 and 61. We go earlier, we can go to 40s and 50s, but we never cheat that. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We've cheated it. But I try. I said, please, let's not cheat it. But we have very, very few times. So they came on board, and it became a huge family of Tom and Curtis writing, and our amazing music producer, Stuart Lerman, and Amy and Dan. And we had this great team, and we just would all be working together. And Tom and Curtis, who hadn't been on the show, were like, we're shooting in a week. Does anybody know? Did Amy like this song? Did they pick it? Are we okay? And don't know. So literally that was going on. I go, welcome to the world of the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. We never know early enough. We never have enough time to do what we need to do, but we get it done. So as long as, and this is with any show, and all of these fabulous music supervisors know, it always will get done, no matter what we have to do, no matter what we have to, it happens. So we brought their music in, but we still had to keep the same integrity and the same feel and the same dynamic that we've had all these other years. So it was just an added bonus, I mean, ultimately, for us.
Great. So talk about this scene we have. It's kind of a double. You have two pieces of music here back to back that flow seamlessly. Talk about what you were looking for here and how the tone changes subtly and gets a little bit romantic.
Well, I wanted to say before that it was a really, really hard choice to choose. You have to choose, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but you have to choose one episode for when you're nominated for an Emmy. So no matter what else goes on, if people watch one show, and I see all the music supervisors shaking their head, if it's a really hard choice to make. So I could have picked the USO, which was wall-to-wall music, but I thought that's all on-camera music, and that doesn't really show Maisel at its best. So I don't mean at its best. I mean, it doesn't show the way we've used music seasonally. So I chose this because Midge goes to Florida with Shy, and they get out of the car, and we play this Bobby Darin, Beyond the Sea. And even though it's a song that everybody knows, and what people don't realize is we took that song and we did an entire beginning, we did an entire middle version of our own. We went to the studio to record. We don't cut the music. We literally went in and recorded with a huge orchestra to fit it in between two sections of the song. And we do that so often. We'll do intros, we'll do outros. And it's like doing a movie a week, except that it's crazy. So we I thought, okay, using that. And then we don't hear really a lot of music until towards the end of the episode. And I thought, you know what? It's just such a great use of music and I want to show it. So here they're in Florida. Midge and Lenny Bruce there's always this little spark between them. And they go and do this job that Lenny has to do. Luke Kirby's freaking amazing. And there's always that little spark, and he takes her out for dinner, but it's goes, let's go out after. And so they go out and they go to a Cuban club. And so Amy had said to me at one point, there's this movie, I Am Cuba, and they have a song in there. Let's use it. That was it. So I'm looking at this 1950s music, like episode, movie, and I'm trying to find, okay, what is Amy talking about? What song does she want? So I found the song, and then I had to find, and it was actually a Paul Anka song. It's called Loco Amor. And I found a singer, Pedrito Martinez, who, and this is again in like 5 days, who I got all these different singers, and because we were recording it, and they had to look right. So we have to send pictures to Amy and Dan. We have to send them to casting. We have to send them to everybody that you know to get approvals on the way they look. They have to cut their hair because they have to look period, or they have to shave their beards. We have to get all that permission within a couple of days. And then we got them in the studio and they recorded, and it was just brilliant. And not so even though music supervising has so many more, it's so much more than just picking songs, as we all know. So that's what happened there. And then we wanted a song for the dance where you kind of don't know, are they going to get together, and had it be sexy and romantic, and they had to be able to dance because Midge isn't a dancer. And Amy and I were talking about Cuban songs, and we were just there. Let's find something that's the sound of the show, but has that same Cuban Latin feel. So I gave them the song, and I still get goosebumps when I watch it. It's, you feel they're like the intense passion that you wonder, is it going to happen?
Bruce, for those who don't know, was, in the 60s, was a very controversial comic who was constantly getting taken to jail. And the first time they actually meet, I believe in the first season, is in jail. If I'm not mistaken, right, Robin?
Yeah.
When she was in jail for some bad content on stage, one of her early stand-up.
I just want to say also that we work really closely. I don't know if I mentioned what oneers were. That was a oneer. So literally, if Pedrito made a mistake, we didn't have footage. We don't cut this. It's the hardest thing to do. And it went right into where they dance. And we also work really, really closely with the choreographer. And there was something else I was going to say while I was watching. Oh, and we didn't get to finish it. But at the end, it continues on while they walk over to the hotel that Lenny is at. And if you haven't watched it, you'll just have to see what happens.
Exactly. It's a good bingeable show, so get into it. All right, we're going to take some questions from the chat room before we close it out. Going back, starting at the beginning. Catherine, are you still awake?
Yeah, just about.
Yes,
1:45 in the morning. But
question, we'll start with you. We'll go around. So good question from the group came from, I forget who it was from, but the question was about the intense scenes. And, both your scene, a lot of your scenes are intense, and obviously in Euphoria, Jen reacted to that. How do you deal with watching intense scenes and, not letting them internalize in your head over and over again, and picking the music for them? What's that process like when the scenes are really intense and violent for you personally?
Good question. I guess with Killing Eve, it's like, because it is, they're intense, but there is this kind of humor and other side to them. Often we're kind of fitting music to Villanelle's reaction. If she's killing somebody, we're not necessarily scoring soundtracking the murder was soundtracking her. So I think it's kind of, and she's, she's enjoying it. So I guess we kind of look at it in a slightly different way than something that was kind of straighter. So yeah, I think it's kind of often the juxtaposition. But yeah, we're kind of telling kind of the way we use music and we're often kind of like trying to be the inner voices of Eve and Villanelle, kind of what's going on in their heads rather than the screen necessarily in the scene. So yeah.
Jen, you want to grab that next one? Because I know you talked about that earlier.
For me, the violence was really hard to watch. And, you just hope that the first couple songs you pick are the ones that work, so you don't have to keep like watching it over and over. In Euphoria, there's a lot of really disturbing scenes, for sure. But I don't know. I just have to, it's the job, and you just have to, maybe sometimes it's like, okay, is this kind of working? But it's hard. That's a great question. And I don't
Thomas, know. Thomas, in your show with the Latino gangsters, the cartel, you have some good violence. Talk about how you approach those scenes.
Yeah. I mean, I also used to work on The Walking Dead, and 5 seasons of that was a lot.
Zombie killing going on that show.
Yeah. I always try to, get invested in the storytelling. So like, if I really feel like the story is compelling, the violence becomes an issue of like, how do we handle it? Like in Breaking Bad, I think we softened some of the more violent moments by using music in a comedic way. We tried not to be arch. We tried to always sort of be truthful to the characters. And we have that to some degree also, in Better Call Saul. I think it's tricky with violence because on one level, you don't want to romanticize violence. You don't want to turn into something which is like, you're not giving the brutality its proper due in the context of the characters. You don't want to disconnect the audience from what's happening. But I think, to the points that Catherine just mentioned, like you want to be inside the character's mind. And like, Breaking Bad was a show about making crystal meth, which is incredibly destructive. But they were not having a bad time when they were making those meth montages. Like that was them in their moment, and for Jimmy McGill, like when he's in his moment as Saul Goodman, he's enjoying that moment, even if it is in the context of criminality. So I think with the violence, you have to always figure out what is your vantage point. Are you doing the vantage point from the character and the character's experience with it? Are you doing it from the audience and the horror the audience has? I think Killing Eve does a certain bit of that where it's like you're in on the joke. We're letting you join us. I think it's trickier on something like Euphoria because it's serious subject matter, but I think you guys do a really interesting balance of whether it's really coming from the point of view of the directors or it's coming from the audience or from the characters. And I think that you get choices of how you want to pivot. And sometimes you try things out and you think they're great, they turn out to be emotionally off. And then you're like, okay, that's why the conversation's good because you can say, you know what, that just feels wrong. And for us, we try to be really, I think, good about making sure we're focusing on the right thing. I don't want the violence to be there for the violence sake. I want it to be there because there's a bigger story being told, and the music is helping take you down that avenue. Sometimes that softens the blow a little bit.
Anybody else want to hit that one before we go to the next one? Okay, next question. What do you do? First of all, Michael, thank you for that question. What do you do in order to not get sick of listening to music, to stay engaged, passionate, interested? Do you still listen to music for pleasure? If so, do you listen differently, or is it hard to turn off that part of your brain that is always listening for projects? Which is, I think, that's a great question. Who hasn't spoken in a while? Liza, maybe you want to jump on that?
Sure. I never get bored with listening to music. I mean, I go through lulls and also having been a DJ for like, I don't know, a century, there's those ears too. So I've got the music supervision ears, the DJ ears, but I also have like ears for other people. Like, oh, my mom would like this, or, this would be good for a playlist about cats or, but I mean, I don't know. I don't really get bored. You guys, what do you think?
Kier?
I think it can get tiring in sometimes when maybe you're listening for something that is not what you would be listening for pleasure all the time. And I think, like Liza said, I probably have lulls where sometimes I'm more excited about going to listen to music for pleasure, and other times I'm more worn out and I want to listen to a podcast or I want to listen to the radio or something that's not going to make me think about work. Because yes, it does. Listening to music does make me think about work, even if it's on just something that's on the radio or out in the world. And so, when I'm home, when I want to relax, I guess I listen to things that maybe aren't music genres that I would necessarily use for work or really, specifically connect with that. But it's something that I think I am very aware of and try to make an effort to listen for pleasure, because that's why I do that.
Right. Anybody else?
I have to say,
Howard Stern. I listened to Howard Stern.
I've not listened to a lot of music during COVID that I would normally listen to. I've listened to music that I know and makes me feel. It's really hard for me to listen to new music right now because normally when I'm listening to new music, I'm listening for whatever shows I am working on. And I love music, but I kind of have shy. Like, people are sending me music and I'm putting them all in a little bin saying, okay, this is a weird, awkward, sad time and I don't want to listen to this and then try to use it in a show or a film and be reminded, oh, I got this during COVID. I want to be able to separate them. So
interesting.
I love music, but I'm shying away from people sending me new things.
And for me, it's funny. I'm the opposite. Like all my friends, 50-year-old friends, like, hey, have you seen this? Have you listened to this podcast? Everybody's talking podcasts. I'm like, look, I'm always listening to the music because I feel that there's so much to keep up on, whether it's your shows or just general knowledge of, when you get into a situation, a conversation with someone, you need to know more. And the times that have been the toughest on me when I worked with, I remember I did this EDM movie with a Mexican director who grew up in that culture as a younger guy, and he knew so much more about the genre than I did. And it just killed me, and I had to basically get really up to speed, and that's not my favorite type of music, but it was needed. So I think the constant path of always trying to listen to music can be overwhelming sometimes,
I think I want to bring up also that I think, like for me, and I think for some of you maybe as well, when we're working on a lot of projects, quite a few projects at the same time, being that our job isn't only creative and we have a lot of other things and meetings and, other areas in admin and overseeing clearances and all that, our listening time window is a lot shorter than we might all want it to be. So that also creates a bit of a conflict. So for me, I try and I have all my characters on my shows dancing in my head kind of at all times. And I'm kind of just open to wherever the music's ideas are going to come from, whether I'm e-surfing or whether I'm driving. I just feel like they're going to drop from the sky. I'm going to hear it in a car going by. And I'm always just so focused on that for whatever free time I have to do so. But it's hard. It's hard. I agree with Kier. Sometimes it's just hard to turn it off. Like, I feel sorry for my husband if, we might be watching a movie and I'm like making comments about the score, and he'll be like, Nora, please stop. I'm like, I can't help it. So that's hard to turn off. For me, when I try to zone out, I tend to listen to classical music.
But don't you find yourself singing these songs all night long in your sleep that you've been listening to or during the day? I mean, I'm doing a movie right now, and we had the composer write a song that Sinead O'Connor is going to sing, and I'm literally sleeping, and all night long this is just going through my head. And if I tell you, I could sing it in my sleep, but when I wake up, I can't remember it. It's like the oddest thing.
Earworms are tough.
All night long while I'm sleeping, so I have to keep a pad next to my bed if I wake up. with an idea. Yeah, we're all crazy. Let's just.
I know it's.
Well, when you listen to music for a living, I mean, it's going to go with the, it is what it is, but that's a blessing to be able to do that for a living. So you guys are all blessed. And
it's hard to complain about it. It is.
It's
not complaining.
Yeah.
No, I love my job.
And one of you guys is going to pick up a statue in a couple weeks for your great work, but all of you have just been amazing, and you're obviously, for all of us, true inspirations, because you're all super hardworking and diligent, and you've done great work, and these shows are all fantastic. So thank you for letting me do this, and so I can keep up on all these great shows, because it is hard. There's so much great TV out there to watch it all.
There's others too that are so great that are not acknowledged. So congratulations, Paul.
Yeah, and Catherine, thanks for staying up late.
Yeah.
So all of you folks out there, please join the Friends of the Guild. We're going to be doing panels every Thursday starting next week for the fall. We'll also be doing happy hours once a month for listening, because we got to keep listening to music. That's what we do. And I just can't thank you guys enough for spending the time with us on behalf of the Music Supervisor Guild and Joel and Madonna and everybody on board. We're so proud of you guys, and just wish they could hand out 7 trophies.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to say something really quickly, that congratulations in advance, and we really appreciate all the hard work you're doing and really helping advance the craft here. And just a reminder that the Emmy ballots for those people who are also Guild of Music Supervisors members and also Television Academy members, ballots are in less than a week. So we're doing this panel to educate people who have the ability to also vote. So you've been educated, and now use your voting power. But don't forget about it. So, it's just a reminder that you should, we've only been able to join the Television Academy for 4 short years. And I saw Michael Levine, who is on this panel right now, who was instrumental for that. So thank you. And I want to encourage people to also, if you are eligible, to join the Television Academy. So, you know what? Make your voices heard, vote, and we'll see you guys Friday on our town hall, right, Jonathan?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to promote that a little bit?
That's Dan Auerbach's artist, Early James, who will be performing.
He is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great record. And actually,
I love him.
I was turned on to it when I was in Nashville by my friend, who's an A&R guy, Patrick Clifford, and then I came back and I heard it on KCRW the next day. So here I am. I think I'm ahead of the curve, but no, KCRW is right there with me. And then not Morning Becomes Eclectic, but Eclectic 24, which I listen to once the Morning Become Eclectic goes off the air, has been playing a lot. So you guys do great work, Les, and Anlit and all the people there. So we're so proud to do stuff with you. And Chris Dreidish will be hosting this Friday's one, and we'll get you to host one in the near future, hopefully. Okay. And speaking of voting, November 3rd is my birthday. So please make the right choice. And vote the right way. I'm not going to say what that is, but All right, guys. Much love.
And fill out your census, both your U.S. census, but the Guild of Music Supervisor census as well.
Hi, guys.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joel.